We are hopeless, selfish creatures, and we need a savior.
She was a total heathen.
All right, we're doing a podcast.
Hey everyone, it is your two Nomos. I'm Kate.
I'm Erica.
And welcome to an expo.
And an Evermo walk into a bar.
We are so happy to do this again at Land of Thousand Hills Coffee here in South Jordan, Utah.
We love it so much. This is just like our home away from home. It's like our cheers. We walk in, we always see people that we know here. It's just a super warm environment. There's one right over there.
Hi.
It's just a great place with really yummy food, really great people, and we have a lovely time here.
And we also have a lovely guest. Some of you may recognize this. This is Joe.
Do I need to move? A lovely
It's
guest?
you!
Oh,
Surprise!
I was not warned I had to be lovely. I don't know about that.
We only allow lovely people
We
on our
really
podcast. Only lovely. So by nature, just the fact that we've invited you means you are the.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know. I'm having an epiphany right now.
You're having a revelation.
I am having a revelation, a godless revelation right now.
Some of you may recognize him. This is Exmo Joe. Joe Rollins is here with us, and so we're just happy to have your lovely self.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here.
Yeah, and so we did an episode with him on his podcast a few weeks ago, The Church of Korhor. Do you want to talk about that project a little bit and just let people know who you are and a little bit about what your backstory is?
Sure. I am Exmo Joe, also alias Joe Rollins. That's what they put on my birth certificate. I'm an ex-Mormon atheist, and I am the founder and current principal leader of the Church of Korhor, which is a spiritual community for godless people that I started back in December. So,
And I love that. We might have to have you on another episode just to talk all about that, because we have a different subject that we'll introduce today, but we're doing a bunch of episodes in a series coming up in the fall about spirituality outside of religion, because you can be an atheist and still be spiritual and find spirituality in other places. And I think that's really interesting and really important. So we'll be doing that kind of in the witchy season in the fall. So it'd be great to have you on to talk about just that project in Church of Korhor and spirituality outside of religion.
I know I'm super busy with the Church of Korhor, but I'll try to make time.
Okay, well, we don't have to, but we'd love to have you on. It'd be great.
Cool.
Yeah, we just would like to ask you also, Joe, just tell us a little bit about your backstory as this Exmo and what brought you here today.
Cool. I am an ex-Mormon atheist. I was born in the church, third generation Mormon on my mom's side, but a pioneer legacy Mormon.
Only third generation.
I know.
I got you beat. I'm like 7.
Oh man, on my dad's side, we go back to Illinois, so don't even start.
Never mind.
I got polygamists in this background here. Okay, so yeah, Rollins is our Cache Valley Mormons.
So is my family.
Oh really?
You guys are really related.
No
We're
problem.
probably related.
You definitely have
somehow.
cousins.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and it definitely gets a little sketchy in that family tree somewhere, but
Well, it would have to, because there weren't enough people to go around,
Right.
right? I mean,
Right.
at some
who
point.
knows? But yeah, that's what they say. But I grew up in Mesa, Arizona. I was called on a mission when I was 19. I was a good little Peter Priesthood boy. Came to Jesus, got my whole come to Jesus moment when I was 14. And I was, the obnoxious little Mormon kid who knew all the scripture mastery stuff and all that. But I also was the guy who you would call to give talks. That was like my thing, is that like I couldn't talk to a girl to save my life. But put her out in a congregation of like 100, 200 people, back when Mormons count that kind of numbers. Put her out in that congregation, and they're all eyeing me, and like all these people, all these adults really respected me, because when I gave a talk, I learned when I'm pretty young that there's a difference between a Mormon church talk and a sermon. And I was definitely going for a sermon. And
Wow.
I did good at that. And so I'm like, oh, this is my shtick. And, when you're a man in the church, you're ordained to the priesthood, you're 12 years old.
You have more authority than any woman around you.
Right. And they make you feel it. That's the interesting thing.
Do they?
When you're a Mormon boy and 12 years old, like, especially adult women, love to point out, you are the leader here. Take charge. There's a lot of ego stroke that goes to being a Mormon teenage boy. So yeah,
Yeah, we have heard that before, and that's something that's definitely stuck in my craw on multiple occasions. But also makes sense that you would be that would keep especially boys in, and that's part of the reason maybe there's been sort of women leaving the church in droves right now, because they don't get that at all. Boys are told from a young age they're
special.
exalted and special, and women are told, put your head down, keep sweet, pray, and obey.
well, you're going to become a god and have as many wives as you want. Oh wait, no, that's not. No one knows that for sure. No one knows that. Nobody said that. I mean, Joseph Smith said that. I mean, Brigham Young said that. I mean, Erastus Snow said that.
But
I
not
mean,
the
Lorenzo
modern.
Snow said that. But Russell M. Nelson never said anything about that. So who knows? Who knows?
Who
They're
knows?
totally all banking on it. Come on.
Oh yeah, they're sealed to their multiple wives and looking forward to
Right.
many more. in
They're
the
counting
afterlife.
them, man. They're counting those wives.
But we get to go and bear child after child after child and continue in servitude. So it's a lot of fun for women.
I know. I couldn't wait for that. That was my thing I look forward to.
That's your reward: more work and childbearing.
No, wait a minute. I was under the impression that that's all that women want is to be pregnant and cranking out babies for
That's all I
eternity.
want. Yeah.
And for those of us who didn't just want that, that was really shameful.
Well,
Because I didn't just want to be the mom. I didn't just want to be a housewife. I wanted other things in my life. And damn it, I got to make sure I rein it in. And it was hard.
well, luckily, part of the role of the priesthood is to exhort and call to repentance. So luckily, you would always have someone to exhort you and call you to repentance living in the house.
I'm so glad.
Very, very useful.
So to tell us you were this great priesthood holder in the church, given all these sermons.
Oh, yeah.
People were had mad respect for you. Served a mission. Where'd you go?
Peru?
Habla español.
Sí,
Qué
por supuesto que sí.
That's bueno.
I saw that in the notes, and then it actually says "Vi una columna de luz." I'm like, oh, we're gonna get along fine, kid.
So we're gonna get along.
Directamente
I-
arriba.
I served in Miami. And,
Oh.
And my favorite people were the Peruvians. Mi gente. Were the
Oh,
Peruvians.
really?
Mhm. They were the best.
Interesting.
We knocked into an apartment of Peruvians because, they're like 8 men living in a 2-bedroom apartment. That's
Oh,
how
yeah.
it works.
Sure.
And we found success with this man who was in his 40s named Golden Investigator.
Nice.
It was because of me. He called me later. He's like, Te amo, Katy. It can't happen, right? So
Did you baptize him?
I baptized him.
You're like, you're baptized. My
No,
head's shot.
let's be
It's all
clear.
fine.
She didn't baptize.
Oh yeah, you can't.
I didn't
Only
baptize
the
him.
dead people, right?
No.
Women
No.
can baptize dead people.
No.
You can't baptize
Get
anyone,
baptized for dead people.
but you can't do the baptism.
You don't. The actual dunking you can't do.
You need the priesthood to do that. That's what we're going to talk about today, because the priesthood was not restored to women, and we will get to that in just a minute. But
So
yeah,
Was it or was it
Yeah,
not?
I know.
Was it or was it not? There's a weird question.
well,
Yeah.
and to say it was not restored also implies that at some point women
It existed.
had the priesthood.
Whoa,
Erica.
This heresy. What are you doing?
blasphemy.
Blasphemy.
Knock it off.
Well, if you know me, I'm pretty blasphemous. So
So, Joe, you served your mission in Peru.
Mm-hmm.
You did that strengthen the testimony, or was it just kind
Very
of
much
whatever?
the opposite way.
The opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially the last 3 to 4 months of my mission is when I dealt with a lot of emotional issues. Was ready to finally come clean. Actually came clean to my last mission president. I had 2, and told him that I'm not doing well. And I lay awake at night and I wonder if I should even come home from this mission. I wonder if I should even wake up tomorrow.
Yeah.
And he was worried. And he's like, well, we don't have any real resources to give you, but you can, do I have to send you home or what's the story? And I said, no, I don't want to go home. That's not the solution. That's not going to do anybody. Because I'd had the conversation you have when you're a good Mormon boy with your parents. Like, I'd rather come home in a pine box. Let's agree.
Yeah.
That is like a phrase, and
I've
you've heard that one before.
which is just, it's still like is shocking to hear, because I think most parents would really rail against that, and that parents would say, yeah, or agree with that to some extent and say this is what we would want to is the very last thing you ever want for your child is to be dead or in a
Right.
pine box.
Right.
That's so it's every time I hear it, it's jarring,
Yeah.
and disturbing.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
I think that to be fair, it's probably more a thing you say before you go on your mission, and it's like faith affirming. But if you were to say it on your mission, which I definitely never dared to do with my parents, it would be a different story. And be like, well, okay, we said that, but we definitely don't want that. And I do believe my parents, they would have said differently if I'd have been bold and said, yeah, no, this is what's going on with me. But I came home an atheist.
Wow.
I realized that selling the sausage of faith had made it so I never wanted to eat it again. I can't taste this ever again, you know what I mean? And so...
Great analogy.
Yeah. I've been using it for 23 years. Maybe I should find a new one, but it works.
It works.
Yeah. So I came home in 2001 and couldn't tell anybody that I was A, depressed, and B, an atheist until I eventually told my bishop, because the depression got scary. And I went to my bishop, who, kudos to him, Bishop Tate. Been giving kudos to this man who probably doesn't know for years now. And he said, I am an accountant. And he says, I'm not qualified to advise you on this.
Good for
Good for
him.
him.
Yeah.
That's pretty remarkable.
And so he said, I would like to make an appointment for you to see a therapist. And I was like, does it work? And he's like, I don't know, but what do you have to lose at this point? You got to try something.
Mm-hmm.
So he made me an appointment with LDS Family Services. That was a mistake.
Yeah.
You've heard the stories about LDS Family Services.
Yeah, well, I just know, like, when you go back, you basically, at this point, you're being fed poison. You're being poisoned by the church and the doctrine and everything that you've been raised around. And then their answer is, take more poison.
Mm-hmm.
Take more of this. If you're addicted to cigarettes, what you need is more cigarettes. It's like, it's counterintuitive, and it doesn't work. And the intention is obviously to keep you a number, tithed, and giving them money and power.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, things can go awry when that is the intention.
Yeah.
You picked it up. That's about it. That's the sum of it. And it was a bad experience. I never went back after my first visit with them.
Just the first visit.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the guy told me, he's like, do you have a plan? And I was like, plan for the old exit? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, yes. And he goes, really? Which is not the way that a trained therapist should be doing it.
No.
And I was like, he's like, I've never had anybody say yes to that question. Also, not a thing a therapist should say to anybody.
Wow.
So clearly not someone who's qualified to be dealing with something
No.
like that.
Right. Well, I mean, he had a degree
Yeah.
from Brigham Young University. I checked.
Yeah.
They only employed, as far as I knew, they only employed Mormons. Interesting story. Later, I married the daughter of one of the people who started the LDS Family Services in Mesa, Arizona. He's a bishop, and he's on a mission for the church now. And my father-in-law is a good man. And when I told him this story, he immediately went, oh. And this is a good, faithful Mormon man. He's been a bishop twice. And he went, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I was like, really? I'm like, is this like a known thing? He's like, it's known to us in the therapy community. He started a rival, counseling center to the LDS Family Services, and people in the church started going to him instead. Mm-hmm. And I said, I told this guy, he said, you went on a mission for the church. How do you think Heavenly Father feels about you? This is the therapist. Feels about you, thinking these things about yourself. And I was like, and he was the first person I ever told, I don't think I believe in that anymore. And he's like, and how long has that been? I said, since I was in Peru. And he's like, I just can't imagine that. I can't imagine it. And he's like, you're such a good member of the church. I mean, you're an RA.
You're good. How can you be so bad?
Right. So from that point on, I was like, man, my journey is apart from this church. I got to go somewhere else. And so I did the toxic atheist thing for 20 years. And then some. I trolled. I got into arguments with people on the internet. I loved it.
So fun.
Oh, yeah. But I did miss I'm like, the thing is, I don't miss preaching about God. But I did kind of miss preaching. And I got a good slice of humble pie with it and saying, I don't know nearly as much as I think I know. And if I were to go out and do something that actually made people feel like they had some spiritual direction in their life, I could do it better without God than I ever did with God, in my opinion. And I thought for years, and confided in very few people, I think I could do this. I think I could start like a church just for atheists. And people would laugh. And I say, yeah, it's funny, right? Yeah, I'll never do it. And I did that for years. And then in 2024, I found out, I was reading on Mormon Stories podcast community that on Facebook, that there were people who were using quitmormon.org to leave the church. And the church was sending them back letters saying, we don't acknowledge that this is legit, and they were refusing to acknowledge their resignation. In 2013, I got excommunicated. I told you guys a little bit of that story before.
Yeah.
But our audience hasn't heard it, so let's hear it.
Oh, okay. So the brief version of the story was that in 2013, I'm married at this point to a Mormon girl, Jack Mormon girl. And she decided to get right with God. We'd had a miscarriage, and she was trying to find some meaning in that. Well, that's the way I interpret it. I'm speaking for her because she's not here. But she went to the temple for the first time, got her endowments out and everything else. But then kind of our heathen lifestyle didn't stop, right? Which is mainly that she's bisexual. She's out about that, so I can talk about that. And she had experiences with women after, after, taking on her temple endowments. And her bishop took her temple recommend away. And that's when she was really upset by it. Yeah.
And then this is where this gets really good.
Molly used to do this thing once in a while. She'd say, I know this isn't you, but right now I need a Mormon husband, and I know you know how to do it. Can you just be my Mormon husband right now? I was like, oh yeah, okay, hold on. Go ahead. And she said, and I said, it sounds like, why did you tell him, Molly? Don't tell him. It's none of his business.
Right.
And she's like, you're supposed to. I said, I get that you're supposed to, but it's none of his business. And I said, so I'll put to you this suggestion. Your business going to the temple, that really doesn't have nearly as much to do with the ecclesiastical leadership deciding whether you are a worthy person or not. So tell him what he needs to hear. I said, I did it for years. Mormons are doing it all over. You might as well tell him what he needs to hear. And she says, well, what is that now? I said, tell him that you do it to keep your family together because your husband is a pervert and makes you do it because he likes to watch. And she said, that won't work. I'm like, you don't have anything to lose at this point. That one got used on me. She went back and she told him. He reached into his desk, pulled out her recommend and sat down. It's like, God, if it's what you have to do to keep your family together, well, that makes sense.
So just to recap, his wife was bisexual and had experiences with women. So she lost her temple recommend. And for anyone who is never Mormon like me, that means you cannot participate fully in the religion. You can't go to weddings. You can't go in the temple. You basically aren't a part. You are on the outskirts of the religion.
Yeah.
When she went to her bishop and said, my husband is making me do things that I don't want to do, and that's why I've been with these women to please my husband, they said, okie dokie. And they gave her back her temple recommend.
Because if that's going to keep the family together, it doesn't matter what needs to be done, right?
And I can't.
To be honest with you, I was a little surprised it worked myself. I said, look, you got nothing to lose at this point. But there was a caveat. He said, I want to talk to your husband. He needs to come in here and show his face to my face and tell me this to my face. So I called him up and I made an appointment. He apparently thought I wasn't going to show, but he doesn't know me at all. My toxic atheist ass showed up to that appointment. And he, of course, called in the entire bishopric, including the executive ward clerk. And he's like, okay, tell them. He was like, sit down. Tell them. I'm like, I'm Joe. Hi. First
I made
time.
my wife eat pussy. Just joking.
I didn't say that. I did not say that. She will confirm nobody makes her do that or anything like it. Well, and if they do, they have to have words with me. That's my you may be, yeah. Anyways, but I did say, I said, look, I'm a pervert by your standards. I like it when she does it, and so I'll do it. I'll do it again and again. And
I love it.
and she and
it should be a fly on that wall.
oh, it was a pretty priceless moment.
It must have been beautiful.
Yeah.
Mwah, chef's kiss.
Mm-hmm. And but he said to me, once again, this cute. How do you think Heavenly Father feels about that?
Well, if he's in the room watching, he probably loves it,
Like-
right? Which that's what they say. He's in the
He is a
room
polygamist,
watching,
and
so
he
he's
does
there.
watch. He was watching all the time.
He's watching every move in the bedroom.
He's watching you when you're touching your little country. So I said, I'm not much bothered by that.
Uh-huh.
And he said, do you believe in God? And I said, no. And he said, how long has that been? And I said, since I was a missionary in Peru 12 years ago.
Wow.
And he's like, well, you can't be a Mormon and be an atheist. I said, right? I said, and yet there are a lot of Mormons who are. And he's like, no, there aren't. I said, I assure you they are. I said, I know that there are, because when I tell people my story, I have people who are members of this church who tell me, I don't believe in God either. I don't believe in an afterlife either. I don't think Joseph Smith was a good person. I have a family member, a close family member, who said, I love the church. I believe everything all the way, except for that Joseph Smith was a prophet.
Which is the entire foundation.
You
of
really
the
can't
church.
make Mormonism. Now, the
That's like
interest,
saying I'm a Christian, except for I don't really believe that Christ existed.
Right.
which there are those too. There are like people who do like home church where they are Christian atheists. So like, we're Christian atheists. We don't buy any of this. And I even know of some that are mythicists like me. That's my real controversial take is I think that the case for a historical Jesus is actually not very well made in the documentary record. And let me tell you, you want to start a screaming match with someone, which I often do. There is still that toxic atheist inside of me who's trying to have spiritual experiences and grow as a person, but also let's fight. And,
We are simpatico.
okay, cool.
And I'll let you guys do
Good.
So, you do not believe that Christ was a historical figure? Because I've heard different things from different people in time, like probably like 20 years ago, had I don't know if you saw that article that was like, basically there's no historical evidence that
Right.
this person, Jesus Christ,
Right.
existed. And then recently there was some other evidence, and I'm kind of on I'm not a Christian. I don't believe that it's the Son of God, as if that makes any sense at all whatsoever. But
Which is really the most important thing about it for Christians.
right, of course, yeah.
Of course.
But some people, atheists, would say there was a man who was, maybe enlightened, who existed at this time, who talked about just being really kind to people, and that there is some historical evidence for that. And I'm like probably 40% that maybe happened and 60% it didn't, from what I understand of the evidence. Are you telling me that you're someone who believes that that historical figure did not exist?
So the way,
The story was made up altogether.
yes, in
Interesting.
effect. And basically, I don't claim to disbelieve, just like as an atheist who's really an agnostic, I don't claim to believe there is no God. I'm not convinced that there is a God.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah.
And where all the places where I would expect God to be, I can't find it there. I find much better explanations in anything besides that.
Yeah.
And so with Jesus, I find that there's these stories. If you deconstruct Jesus and get it back to how many people in the 1st and 2nd century believed that Jesus was from outer space or heaven, which is, well, they said outer space back then, and that he was crucified in outer space, that he was resurrected in outer space, that he ascended back to the Father in outer space. How many of those people were there, and are they before or after the people who knew a man who walked in Galilee? The blunt answer is no one knows, but all the stories about him are either taken from the Old Testament or they're taken from Greek mythology. And the core of the story that St. Paul talks about, who's really the first gospel, we don't think about that, but the real first gospel is Paul's gospel. And Paul's gospel, you read through it with some knowledge of the Greek. He never talks about a man who gave a sermon. He never talks about a babe born in Bethlehem. He never talks about a man who went to Jerusalem. He never talks about a man who was resurrected from the dead in Jerusalem. He never talks about calling the 12 apostles. He never talks about Mary Magdalene. He never talks about his mother Mary. He never talks about any of that story. That is all 2nd century creation, as far as we know. And so it's like, okay, most historians who agree, yeah, there must have been a Jesus, are still at a loss to say, how do we know? I mean, when all of the story comes from mythology. And it's like, well, we know because all these people were his personal apostles. We know disciples who actually existed. Okay, go over them. Which ones are they? Well, there was Peter. Okay, Cephas, Peter, yes, probably. There was James, the brother of the Lord, who was Jesus' flesh and blood brother. Oh, don't tell a Catholic. Jesus had a brother. And it's like, but who is James? Is he a brother in the Lord?
I didn't either.
Yeah. Is he a brother in the Lord? Because Paul does talk about that. He says, I met James, the Lord's brother. But he uses language very similar to how he uses in other places. And as he uses in other places, say, our brother in the Lord, so-and-so. So it's like, is this James, Jesus's flesh and blood brother? Or is this James, a brother in Christ? Frankly, we just don't know.
Yeah.
So it's like, so the short version is nobody knows. And there's nowhere near enough evidence to say yes or no. But the case for that Jesus started as a myth and not as a man is so compelling and leads me. I actually had a great podcast episode with a friend of mine. I hope he considers me a friend, Richard Carrier, who's like the foremost expert on Jesus mythicism, I'd say, right now. And I said, where do you, at the end of everything, Richard, you've written books about this, you've published studies about this. Where do you land on this? And he said, the end of the story is we don't have enough evidence to say yes or no on Jesus as a historical person.
It's the same with God. Like, you don't have enough evidence to say yes or no. So I believe we're all agnostic. Everyone's agnostic.
I agree.
Yeah.
And there are all of the iterations that we talked about a little bit on your podcast, played out in the film Heretic, about all of the iterations of the same story that happened over and over and over. This was a myth that was told for centuries, if not millennia, before Jesus Christ, about the virgin birth and the Son of God and the resurrection. And so it's just that same story sort of regurgitated. Maybe put on a historical figure.
Yeah.
Maybe not. But anyway, I think that's a super interesting conversation. And there's,
We can go on for a while about that.
So we understand that you were excommunicated, though.
Yeah. 1 week later. So I met with stake president on Tuesday of that week. Because he told me, he said, the bishop, he said, you either are going to resign from the church today, or I'm going to submit you to be excommunicated. And I said,
There was not the choice to go back to believing God.
no, no. My wife's husband, no, is not welcome back to the church. No, that boy needs out. He's a perp. And so I went on Tuesday and I met with the stake president and we talked for a minute. He asked me about my mission. When you're an RM, you're not supposed to leave the church. You're supposed to have a firm testimony. And
RM.
Return missionary.
Oh, return mission.
You'll get the jargon. You'll get it one day.
There's lots of abbreviations.
I'm getting some. MCT.
MTC.
MTC.
Yay.
I've got that one. Nephi, Moroni. I know a few things.
Okay, if you can keep Nephi and Moroni straight, you're doing better than Joseph Smith.
Did he mix them up?
He did.
I love it.
I don't know that, but I'm excited.
There's some document, I don't know it off the top of my head, but they say that he referred to Moroni, the heavenly messenger, as Nephi in the early documents.
He was probably drunk.
Probably.
It could very well be. But that's another interesting story about Joseph Smith, is his alcoholism. So, you can trigger a lot of Mormons with that. It's like, don't call it that. It's alcoholism. It's not a mystery. We know what that is. We know what it looks like. But so the stake president, he's like, well, it does seem like you're very sincere. And he's like, and honestly, I'm a little concerned that I feel a little out of depth when I talk about doctrine with you, because I laid it on thick a little bit there. I said, well, I didn't mean to do that. It can be a jerk sometimes. He's like, no, it's fine. He's like, but I definitely think you can't be a member of this church anymore. And I said, I won't leave. I said, I'll explain this to Bishop Smith. He actually is Bishop Smith. And I said, it's like I explained to him. we and ex-Mormons, because I did consider myself. I consider my sex ex-Mormon. Sex mojo.
Ex-Mormon sex.
Sex mojo.
I did make a documentary, almost made a documentary
Maybe
called
we
Mormon
called
Sex.
this episode Sex Mojo.
Sweet. I dig it. I just posted on my Facebook because people have been asking me about it. My Cash App is the dollar sign with X Mojo, and I just love that because it looks like Sex Mojo. Hell yeah, it is.
Shit.
Send your money to Sex Mojo. Ladies. Or fellas, whatever. Just get those dollars.
Or any of the genders.
That's right. Any non-binaries, give me those non-binary dollars. No, but yeah, so he's like, yeah, let's communicate you. And I said, okay, great. When? And he said, how about Sunday? And I said, great. What time? And he said, right after the block, 5:00. I was like, oh, is that when the block ends? Good. So you are a good Mormon I am since I moved into your stake. I said, okay, let's go. And I did.
So there's an actual, I thought excommunication was just like a process, not a date, like a wedding or a funeral. So it's an actual, like you make a date to be excommunicated.
It's called a court of love.
Not anymore. They've changed.
They changed it again. It used to be called a disciplinary council.
Yeah, it's something new now. I think we learned about it.
Very Gilead.
Yeah.
Very Gilead. Gilead is the right way to go with. Yes. And the process is like that, except that they weren't. Here's the thing about being excommunicated. You can stand up at a court of love, or at least you could when in my time, and say anything in your defense. And they don't restrict what you can say.
And who's there? So it's like, set the scene. Is it just, is like a couple, is like the stake president and
Correct.
some bishops and stuff?
No.
Or just
State president, his counselors, and then the high council.
But no like shaming in front of the congregation or anything like
No,
that.
not anymore.
Because that'd be fun to be able to stand up in front of all those people and be like,
Right. Shame.
you take off all your clothes and like flog them,
Like take those
the
garments
water.
off. Welcome to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day-Saints. Let's get weird. No, there's 12 men sitting at a table that's shaped kind of like a trapezoid. Mm-hmm. And then at the head of the trapezoid is 3 men, the stake president and his counselors. And and they just, and then what happens is supposed to be that half of them, they draw lots. And half of them, the odd numbered, the odd numbered are supposed to speak for the defendant, and then the even numbered are supposed to speak for the church.
I mean, great debating skills there, right?
So you had people speaking on your behalf.
Supposedly.
Communication. What'd they say?
After I got up and gave them 20 minutes of why this church is definitely not true on my iPad, and all the sinful things that I had done in my life. I'm like, here's your rap sheet, blah, 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 blah. Then they said, so let's go ahead and deliberate for a minute. And then they kicked me, my dad, who was very enthusiastic about seeing an excommunication person. So he came and he's like, okay, so we left. And the bishop was invited, but just as an observer. And we went out into the lobby. And they deliberated for, I'm going to say like half an hour or something like that. It was like forever. It felt like, I'm like, what is there to talk about? Kick my ass out already. And then we went back in and they read me the section of the Doctrine and Covenants about the martyrdom of Joseph and Hiram. And then said, so, and you, for that reason, you're excommunicated from the church.
And did you go, huzzah?
No, I did cry a little bit.
Are you used to crying tears of sadness or relief or anguish or all of the above?
It was when I got to the part where I said, look, for what it's worth, if I could be with Molly and Scarlett and now Elijah, he had a different name at the time, forever, I would. But that's a broken promise. It's a false promise.
Yeah.
And I won't teach my children that, and I won't do it. I won't abide by it. And any person who asks me, and many have, and people have left this church because of this. On Thursday, my stake president came to me at my home office, and he said, we don't have anything to excommunicate you for. And I said, what? And he's like, yeah, we don't have anything to excommunicate you for. And I was like, well, like just do like word of wisdom or something. I said, and he's like, we don't have
Like, yo,
to keep
drink
people.
coffee.
Yeah, I drink coffee, I drink beer, I do all kinds of stuff. I can give you the rap sheet if you need it. And he's like,
Vodka, whatever.
I'm a sinner, dude. And if it's not good enough, I'll do more if you want. I said, well, what about, he said, yeah, we don't do that anymore. I said, well, I know you kick people out for apostasy because at the time they were looking at excommunicating Kate Kelly, John DeLynn, and
It was 2015 when this happened.
this was 2013, but they were already talking about it.
Gotcha.
And Jeremy Reynolds,
Yeah.
you know, and I was like, for the creator of the CES letter, and I'm like, I know you kick people out. I'm like, the September 6th. I mean, you kick people out for apostasy.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, yeah, but you have to join another church to do that. I said, that you need to read that again in the priesthood leadership manual. That's not what it says. If you cause people to leave the church by teaching them doctrine that is not true, that is apostasy and conduct on becoming a member of the church. And then apart from that, if you join another church, you can also get kicked out for the same thing, which is weird that that's the same rule. And he said, oh yeah, but you haven't caused other people to leave the church. And I looked at him and I said, dozens. And he's like, what?
You're like, please, for the love of God, excommunicate me.
Right. Well, it was true. I was like, I am a one-man missionary for leave this church. It is false, it is wrong, and it does terrible things. Wow. It will do bad things to your children. It will do bad things for you. Get out, and people do it.
So the tears at that time, where it sounds like were about the loss of the belief that, like, maybe because there is a loss there. I experienced the same thing when I left Christianity when I was 14. It took me a little while to figure it out because I was young. I just left my Episcopalian church, and at some point I was like, oh shit. If that's not true, when I die, like that. And it was very upsetting, and that, like, it still is upsetting to me. It's sad, it's a reality, I think, probably. But it sounds like it was maybe that sort of similar thing for you, that that you weren't going to be able to spend eternity with certain people, or you lose that forever life.
It's interesting. Like, at that point, when I was on my mission, the idea of the lights out and the dial tone at the end of life actually was a great relief to me. That was the point where I went, I think I might be better off. And that kind of never went away. And I've been doing much better with that, being comfortable with that. Yeah.
We'll have a whole conversation because I am not comfortable with it.
I'm the same. I'm right there with you, Joe.
Really?
Like, once you feel like having that kind of belief, and we can talk about this later, but having that belief just says, like, this life is that much more enjoyable. Like, this is like, we get time to make the most of this life, to enjoy it while we're here, because we don't have to wait till the end, and you don't have to pop out babies for the rest of eternity.
I can't imagine any woman who wouldn't feel relieved if you'd spent your whole life thinking, I'm gonna what?
I don't have to be a second wife or
third,
or
fourth,
third,
or 10th, or 100th.
Exactly. I don't have to be a multiple wife to this one guy who just
Wasn't it Carolyn Pearson who said that? I'm sure you've probably heard this term, but we're educating on all the terms. But you've heard of this concept of sad heaven?
I have not, but I can imagine popping out babies for eternity would be my fucking hell.
heaven.
Not just sad heaven, but hell.
That's right. There are women in the church who referred to this idea of eternal polygamy as sad heaven.
Yeah, because it sucks. It's definitely not engineered for us.
or being sealed to your family forever when you don't like your family.
Right.
There are lots of people in my family I would not want to be sealed
Right.
to.
There are a lot of people. It's like, how is this heaven? It's like, I still do this when I'm snarky and trolling on it. I'm like, one of you Mormons or one of you Christians sell me on a God I would want to live with for eternity, and tell me that that's heaven and not hell.
Yeah.
And crickets. I'm like, I mean, I have friends who will come in and they're on the Jesus high and they're like, but God is goodness. And I'm like, prove it.
Look around. There's lots to there's lots of evidence to the contrary.
Right. And at the end of the day, if I'm not convinced of that, then what difference does it make? That's not my heaven, right? In that situation, my heaven is hell. Because I'm not going to be with him. I'm going to be with George Carlin. George Carlin,
That's heaven.
right?
That'd be great. I could spend eternity with George Carlin, just
Right.
like talking and
John Lennon performs every night. George Carlin, does a new set every
This
Thursday.
is what I'm talking about.
I'm telling, man, get to hell.
Martinis all the time.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, man, outer darkness all day.
So we do want to talk about our episode today. No, thank you for sharing
So
that.
we're actually going to talk about.
No, thank you for sharing that. Like, that's great to get your perspective, and it sounds like you've been out long enough that you understand a lot of what we're going to talk about today. So we're in a series of CES letter. You know Jeremy Reynolds.
I do.
Who's the author of the CES letter. And we've kind of done a little bit of this series, and today we want to talk a little bit about the first vision and the restoration of the priesthood, which Eric is going to learn all about today.
So excited. And I just want to reiterate for anyone who hasn't seen previous episodes, the CES letter is something that it was the shelf breaker for a lot of Mormons. I'm not super familiar with it because it wouldn't make sense to me, except for what you have shared with me. I wouldn't be able to say this disproves or proves anything because I don't know the whole structural basis for it. But it's basically this guy, Jeremy Reynolds, went in and wanted to sort of affirm his faith and find reasons to continue to believe in the Mormon church. And what he found was the exact opposite in a bunch of things that led him out of the church. And then he wrote the CES letter that's about that. So we have talked a little bit about like sort of an overview. And now we're going to, and we did another episode
About Joseph Smith's translation.
Yeah. Yeah. So now we're just doing another sort of section about that with Joe.
Cool.
With Exmojo.
Definitely got to catch that episode of the Joseph Smith translation because that's a whole topic and a half.
And it was. So we're going to start today by talking about the first vision. And so in the CES letter, Joseph Smith starts with a quote by our President Gordon Hinckley, who is my favorite prophet. He says,
Mine as well.
Everybody's favorite.
Yeah,
prophet.
he was awesome. Like
He's
he was the Dumbledore of like
I also don't know what a Dumbledore is.
Harry Potter. Oh, we'll have to have episodes about Harry Potter. But anyhow, he says, our whole strength rests on the validity of that first vision. It either occurred or did not occur. If it did not, then this work is a fraud. If it did, then it's the most important and wonderful work under the heavens.
your thoughts, Eric.
Well, everything that I know about Joseph Smith and what more and more people are sort of understanding about Joseph Smith was that he was a shyster and a fraud and was treasure hunting before he came up with the vision and the whole Mormon ideology, that he was impoverished and his family was struggling, and that also at some point he was cheating on his wife Emma in a barn with their 14-year-old maid or teenage maid. I don't know if she was 14, teenage maid. Emma caught them and he said, God made me do it. So putting any stock in this guy and the reality that he created, to me, is it doesn't make any sense. So from my understanding, anything that he said was likely fraudulent and to benefit himself, which then, according to Hinckley, would undermine the entire church doctrine.
And that was a bold statement that he says. Like, he's like,
Yes, it is.
Either it's true or it's a fraud.
And now
But
they can never
you're-
go back.
Right, but in the church, though, you can never ever think that it is a fraud. Like, you've been taught that it's true, and it can't possibly be a fraud. And then you want to double down and make your testimony that much stronger because it's impossible to have bought into a fraud your whole life, right?
Right.
So we want to share with Erica the account of the first vision, like the one that every member of the church knows, because we're going to find out later that there were multiple accounts. We're going to talk about it in a minute, but let's go over the first vision as taught by the church. Joe, do you want to teach Erica? So she's investigating the church. She really wants to know about the first vision.
And this, for any never Mormons who don't know, an investigator I learned is an actual, like, sort of technical Mormon term. It means somebody that is looking maybe to join, who's curious and interested. I am curious and interested, but from a totally other perspective of basically what
The WTF investigation.
WTF?
Yes.
That's called an anti in Mormon language. They call those antis.
So
That's you are. You're an anti. Congratulations. Welcome to Jacob Hansen, smearing your name in mud for eternity. That's good status. It's good status.
Come on, what is good?
Yeah.
So let's teach Erica
So
the first vision.
it goes like this. En el año 1820.
Ok, vamos a hacer todo en español.
Claro que sí.
Hablamos.
Yo no sabía que tú hablabas español.
Viví en Ecuador por un año.
Ah, mira. You could
There are going to be subtitles for this.
you could actually do this.
No, I find that so interesting. En el año de like where you started that, y vi una columna de luz más brillante que el sol.
This actually sounds really pretty. I'm like, this sounds like a beautiful story.
Oh, Joseph Smith, if he had learned Spanish, this would have been unstoppable. This story is so much more beautiful.
It really is.
and
Everything is
curated.
more beautiful in Spanish.
So Joseph Smith claims in this 1838 version, which is now really the canon version of the church, is confused about all the different religions in the world. So he read in the Bible that you can ask God with faith and God will reveal it to you. And so he did. Prayed for the first time out loud, which was a big deal for Joseph Smith. This comes from an old tradition that says that if you can't pray out loud, it's because like you have devils hanging on you kind of thing. So that actually gets to be like a pretty big motif in early Mormonism is like, are you able to pray out loud? Anyways, learned that law later. He claims that a dark force tried to overtake him and kill him while he was trying to pray.
So
out
he did
loud.
have the demons.
Right.
But
And-
did he slay them?
Yep. But he says that he was about to succumb to the darkness when vi una columna de luz, I believe in English it says, I saw a pillar of light descending directly upon me. Sometimes in other versions he calls it fire, a pillar of fire. So the pillar of light, más brillante que el sol, brighter than the noonday sun, rests upon him. And then he looks up and sees two figures who are Jesus and God the Father.
And God the Father turns to Jesus and says, "Behold my beloved Son, hear him." And then thus ushered the entrance of the gospel, because there had been an apostasy where there was the church with the original disciples and they had taught it, but then after a while people were like, no, we want to kill the disciples. And so then the church fell away, and now Jesus and God are like, let's talk to this 14-year-old boy out in the woods and have him bring back the restored gospel of Jesus Christ.
Shoot, man, if you put a plastic name tag on you and get rid of those points, you could baptize this dry Mormon right now between the two of us.
Right.
Yeah.
So that the first vision was just literally God and Jesus Christ coming to Joseph Smith while he's praying in the woods and saying, hey, none of the churches that you were looking into are true. This is the true church. We're going to use you to bring it back in to the world.
And did Joseph Smith say this when he was 14? Did he or
Ooh,
That's
that's
what
a
we're
good
gonna
question.
unpack today.
That is a good question.
So yeah, we want to talk about how there are, in fact, multiple versions of the first vision.
And this one was not the first.
No.
That's the most important thing. And it's probably the most important thing to take away before we go off and dive down this rabbit hole is that it appears to be, we don't know for sure, but it appears to be most of the early converts didn't ever hear any first vision.
Not at
story,
all.
Right?
what did they hear? Just let's start a church. You can bang multiple women.
Yes. I mean, it did grow quickly. No.
I can see how it would. That's enticing.
That's not it at all. No, it was mainly about the heavenly messenger or the treasure guardian and how he had revealed the gold plates in the Book of Mormon. Everything was very much about Joseph Smith's prophetic capabilities with the peepee stone and the peeping cat and his peeping abilities and these gold plates that now have gone back to Kolob. So if you don't, if you know, you know.
We talked about that in our last episode.
Yeah, we've
right?
talked a little bit about the gold
Yeah.
plates and how they never existed and no one.
And they were
ever
just
saw
always
them.
superfluous because with the rock and the hat, why
You don't need the gold
why do
plates
you need the gold
anyway.
plates?
Joseph Smith was basically the consummate charlatan. He needed money. His family was downwardly mobile, is the politically correct way to say it. And this was pretty much rock bottom for them. It's like, if we're going to recover from where we are here, we're going to have to figure out a way to basically monetize faith. And so the
And
story.
they did. Boy, did they.
Well, I mean,
Like $500 billion later.
right. Well, the church did. Yeah, definitely has made a heyday out of it. And this version of the first vision, that's apparently the winner. That's the one that you want, right? But the early story was mainly about the Book of Mormon. It was about they were putting together a community that got together to do sacrament. That's raised some interesting theories. And that they get together to do the sacrament and eventually to do baptisms too. And they were going to be called the not the community of Christ, the Church of Christ, because that's what the Book of Mormon says that the true church is going to be called in the last days. But then in 1830, after they are organized, they have a general conference, and this guy from Ohio shows up. His name is Sidney Rigdon, but he becomes very important for this first vision story. Sidney Rigdon, he had a Baptist congregation in Ohio, and so Joseph Smith's from Vermont, living in New York, married a girl from Pennsylvania, came back to New York, started a church in New York, and this guy from Ohio shows up. But he's got a congregation where he basically has two churches in two towns in Ohio, and they're struggling to get converts. They're struggling with they actually did have some like violence against the members of the church, or at least criticism of the church in New York. New York was not a good home for Mormonism. Right.
Well, where is?
Ohio. Utah, if you clear out all the idiots. So, but this guy shows up, and he is part of what is known as the Campbellite group. They're the original restorationists. They believe everything that's described in the Old Testament and New Testament is going to be restored here in America. That means prophets, that means apostles, that means evangelists, that means all of the structure as it originally existed. That's where that whole narrative comes from. And so he comes in and he says, I think you guys should rename your church. Now, mind you, the Book of Mormon says it's called the Church of Christ, and it's an ancient document on gold plates. Did you hear about gold plates? Reformed Egyptian. He says, no, I think that a better name would be the Church of Latter-day Saints. Well, this guy's got a whole congregation out in Ohio of people who might get converted. And so they take a vote, and the Church of Christ is now the Church of Latter-day Saints. And that's how that whole thing gets kicked off.
And with that at the time is that, because this is interesting for nevermormons, and something that I was talking to my dad about when he was visiting, he said something about saints, and I said, oh, they're all saints. And he said, what? I said, yeah, that's what and I didn't know until I moved here, but that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is not about like saints the way that you might think of in like Catholicism, the people who like invented saintdom,
Dying for their religion.
yeah, or doing something that sort of elevates you. But all of the members of the church are actually saints in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints,
and none of the people that are venerated as saints. Well, almost none.
So did that happen at that time? He said, we're going to call the church this, and all y'all get to be saints.
Basically.
Hell yeah.
I'm in.
I was.
I'm going to be a saint. You're a saint. You're a fallen saint.
I'm a fallen saint. We call those apostates.
Yeah, much better. Much better.
Saint is funner. I'd rather be a fallen saint than an apostate. That sounds like a blemish or something.
Oh, it definitely does. One that you wear with pride, though. Once you're on the, I
got an apostate. Go on, sorry.
I tell people I'm in Satan's band, but like not a regular. I'm just in it for the free drugs.
You and me both.
So the first vision story that we told you it took place in 1820. when Joseph Smith was 14 years old.
Allegedly.
Because nobody heard a whisper about this.
So he never said it.
He never said a thing about it until like 1838 was when it was published. And then like, I mean, maybe even 1842 is when it was put into the Doctrine or the Pearl of Great Price.
So decades later, he's saying,
Oh,
I
by
had
the
a
way,
vision back then.
In this
and
version.
I never
In
told
that
anybody
version.
about it, but I did. And it was amazing. And everyone should give me money and wives.
pretty much, yeah. So there was that.
Okay,
account.
that's a multi-decade conversation. But it comes out to that in the end. We know that now.
Right.
Now we can see that. But at the
Right.
time, a lot of that was still on the DL.
But there were other accounts as well, which I had no idea about until I read the CES letter. For the first time, I was like, wait, there's more than one? But there was one in 1832 that was took place where it was handwritten, and it was, Joseph said this happened when he was 15, not when he was 14.
In his 16th year.
Yeah, in his 16th year. And then he said that there was only one being rather than two. He was like, the Lord came to me, but that was one.
Get your story straight, Joseph.
But he
That's right.
couldn't. He couldn't.
That's right.
There were no mentions of the power of Satan. There was no desire to discover the true church. It was just a completely different version altogether.
Right.
There were two accounts in 1835, different from the 1838 version. And then there was another one in 1842. There are all of these different accounts, but they're all telling different stories.
All from
And so-
Joseph.
all from Joseph.
Yeah.
And he just, like you said, get your story straight, Joseph. But as he's making it up as he goes, he has that freedom, and he doesn't understand what kind of technology we're going to have in the future. And if he's the only one with his account and it's not around for everybody to see, then they just have to go based on what he's saying, his word, take his word.
Right. And no computers at the time. So there's no way to do like an internet search and go back and see like what he said or not
Right.
said. And,
And
if
it's-
there's even a printing press,
He burns it
there's-
down.
Fair. Oh my gosh, that's a whole other story. I don't know if
about
you saw the Mormonish Rebecca Biblioteca posted
Oh, yeah?
from this weekend.
No, I haven't seen that.
Oh yeah, we'll have to come back to that. But yes, you're right, absolutely. But
So what does the church say about all of this? Like what all of these different accounts, and especially in relation to what Hinckley said in terms of this is true or it's not true, and if it's not true, none of it's true. But then, like, do they ever even address it at all?
Yes.
What do
They
they say?
did-
Just
they
say it'll
have-
be addressed in the afterlife.
in the same, I think it was the same year that I was excommunicated. The church came out with. I'm not saying that I drove the church to do this. I'd love to think that, but
Let's say.
yeah, we'll just say that. You all are just reacting to Exmo Joe. No, if anything, they're reacting to Jeremy, my friend Jeremy. Call me. We haven't talked in a while, but the church releases these gospel topics essays, which is a very clever way to say, if you're searching for this on the internet, we've been clean about this the whole time. This is on our website without
Gaslighting.
promoting. Yes, very much so. Very much so.
And those were released, what, 2013,
I want to say it's somewhere around 2013. I could have sworn it was
2025. I didn't even know about the gospel topics essays because they don't preach it. There's no direct instruction in the church about these things. It's just kind of like, oh, as I'm doing my own study, I'm wondering if I could learn a little bit more about Heavenly Mother here. Oh, that's what the church says about this. But they don't teach it directly. It's just, it's there just to cover our bases in case you're curious.
The
And to
church,
say that they've covered it,
Yeah.
right?
the church's narrative when we were growing up was, don't look up any church history in non-church approved sources, which is not culty at all.
No, that's something that I've said on multiple occasions. Just, like, I mean,
That's
sort
not
of
the
say,
first-
don't read anything outside of what we tell you to read.
Right.
Like, gosh, if I was like grew up in that, I feel like I'd be like, wait a minute. Like, that's like that'd be such a red flag.
It was. I mean, for me, it was the whole of my life, and I had to you had to stifle it. You had to,
Yeah.
push it down because look at the way they look at me when I talk. And but the
If you're a man,
right.
if
Well,
you're a
yeah.
woman, you better shut up. But they might look at you nicely if you cover your porn shoulders and you're
Not too
very,
much.
very quiet and
Just
erase
a
your
little
mouth.
shoulder. I mean, get porn adjacent. Get those camisoles, girl. What's modest is hottest.
So wait, what does the church say? And the church
Yeah, the
approved?
church
Do they say we don't know? It's kind of messed up. Do they say?
They say that they're complementary accounts. So in other words, right. So basically their narrative is the 1832 version, Joseph related what was important to him to record at that time. And that was that he had been saved. That actually is important. I'd say is that this Joseph Smith came from a Methodist household. In his Methodist household, to get converted to God is to have is to be born again, is to have the baptism of fire, is to have the visitation of fire. And so his language mimics that story. But he's converting all these people in Ohio who are these shouting, I got into trouble for calling them snake dancing Baptists. But he's found these people who want to see a miracle. They want to experience a miracle. They want to have visions.
Who doesn't?
Right? And so for those people, there had to be a better origin story. I can take my rock and put it in this hat and see gold plates that I have buried out in a log out in the forest, but only because I needed them to be able to translate them into English from Reformed Egyptian, but not actually have them here, but have them nearby and just use the Wi-Fi. You know, that story, it turns out, wasn't maybe as persuasive as, well, I saw God once. And so it's like, oh, what did he tell you? Oh, that I was forgiven of my sins. Oh, that's boring. And so it had to keep getting better and better. So Sidney Rigdon, I think, is really the catalyst. And there's all kinds of narratives that have been discussed by real historians. I think Sidney Rigdon and Hiram Page, I think, are really big instigators of not only starting to cover up and replace the origin story of Mormonism, but also the authority, the priesthood authority. And so that's where I think that's why they started to, Joseph Smith sat down starting, I believe, in 1834. He and Oliver Cowdery started to correlate, which becomes a Mormon tradition. This is what we're going to say happened. And suddenly people start comparing the things they record in their in the church's history, especially as Joseph Smith takes over the whole thing, and people start comparing it. People like William E. McClellan, people like I want to say Edward Partridge, and several. They start correlating. It's like, did you ever hear that Joseph Smith Joseph and Oliver were ordained to one priesthood by the resurrected John the Baptist?
Yeah.
And did you hear that they were ordained by Peter, James, and John? And they start writing to each other, talking to each other. Goes, I never heard anything about John the Baptist. I remember something about a messenger. It might have been Nephi or Moroni or whatever he was, but and it's like, and it wasn't always clear, the story as people remembered it. Now maybe memory is weird, but
we know it is.
If somebody told you, I saw God and Jesus in a forest of trees in upstate New York in 1820, how much of that do you think you'd forget even like 10, 20, 30 years later? It's a
pretty outstanding story. I think you keep some of that.
Right. But the thing that changes then is the 1838. By 1838, he's in Missouri and he's recording this whole story. And by this point, he's had so many challenges to his authority, Joseph Smith's authority as the true leader of the church, which at the beginning, it seems to be pretty open. He was an elder in the church, and he was the first elder of the church, but that didn't necessarily mean that he was directing everything. And we saw that right away because one of the witnesses to the Book of Mormon, Hiram Page, he comes out and says, you're not the only one who has a magic seer stone. I have a seer stone.
Whoa.
Right? He starts taking seer stone. Oliver Cowdery, who is Joseph Smith's scribe for most of the Book of Mormon, he starts hearing the things Hiram Page is saying about how to set up the government of the church, and he's like, I feel it. I think this guy's got it. He's got what Joseph has, and Joseph has to get involved and get in the middle and go, no. What's happening here is I can use my stone to say God has revealed that all the revelations come through Joseph Smith. Oh, sorry. Sorry, buddy. I'm sorry. Also, what's this? Oh, it says you should do what with the revelations? The Lord says to burn the revelations. Oh, that is so crappy. I am sorry. What's this? and destroy the rock.
Wow.
And
So
they
he
did.
destroys the other guy's seer stone?
And makes him think of
Do this. I'm gonna be like, I have a vision. Everyone should give me all of their money. It's just God told me it said it, so you better do it, or bad things will happen.
Right.
Right.
Like how people, oh gosh, people are just silly.
Right.
Like the fact that people will go along with. I mean, you just have to be, I guess, a very specific type of person. But
Right.
it's sort of fascinating to me that someone could say something so outrageously beneficial to themselves, and everyone would just go, yeah, that sounds right, let's do that. Like,
So
Because he had that power, he had
Yeah.
the vision, he had God the Father and Jesus Christ talking to him. You can't question that. And
me
then,
too, I do too.
but you're a woman. Shh. Sit down, shut up.
Yeah, you got to do that shit with your penis.
where's your cancel?
And you kind of alluded to this earlier, Joe, but there was, in addition to the first vision, which was God the Father and Jesus Christ coming to Joseph Smith, later he had the priesthood restored, which was part of that original part of the church. Like what do they call it? The ancient church, the
original church.
The original church.
Jesus' church.
Yeah, Jesus' church, they had this priesthood where there was laying on of hands to do healing powers, to give the gift of the Holy Ghost. It was just this power from God, and guess who gets it? Those with the penises get
They get everything.
They get everything.
Everything is for them.
Right, and
Us.
for you. As for this priesthood restoration, he had to receive it. It had to be restored as the church was restored. There are two types of priesthood, right? What are those two types of priesthood?
We have the
Joe?
lesser priesthood and the higher priesthood. There's actually a third one.
And the
a
women
fourth.
get the lesser priesthood?
No.
Oh no.
No.
Damn,
no.
you get nothing again. Shafted.
This is strictly penis only. At this point. But yes, no. There's the Aaronic priesthood, which is a preparatory priesthood named after Aaron, because
Oh, not after iron.
No. Aaron
Not yet.
is the brother of
Not yet.
he was the brother of Moses, is who that
Right.
was. Yeah.
And so that means that is the lesser preparatory priesthood because it's the one the Jews used. And they don't say it quite that way, but that's the one the Jews used. Then you have the Melchizedek priesthood, which is actually called the holy priesthood after the order of the Son of God, but Melchizedek for short.
So you get the Aaronic priesthood when you're 12 years old, and thereby making you more authoritative than any woman in the room. And then the second one you get when you're 16. Is that right?
When you normally it's like around 18 or 19.
Oh, that's right, 18 or
All
19.
the men get the all the men get the priesthood. That's what you get.
If they're worthy and they're not touching themselves.
And they're not black.
So don't touch yourself, boys.
Yeah. And not
Otherwise, no priesthood for you.
And
Right.
they're not black.
Until 1978.
When God changed his mind about
Yeah.
black people.
As he does.
As he does.
The restoration has always been like muddy and unclear to me because there were churches, there were priesthoods, there was those were. So what is the you're restoring a thing that from an outsider looks like already exists because there are priests and churches all over the country, but they're wrong. They're
Right.
not real priesthood. They're saying
Correct.
the priesthood has not existed since biblical times.
And hence why
And
the
we have
first
to
vision.
restore a thing that has actually existed all these
Yeah.
times.
There
And
were-
everyone went, okay.
Yeah, because there was an apostasy or a falling away. But then God and Jesus come back to Joseph. They restore this church and give him the authority through John the Baptist for the Aaronic priesthood and Peter, James, and John for the Melchizedek.
So a bunch of people who have been dead for thousands of years.
Yes,
But are now resurrected.
they're angels.
And maybe gods.
Because they get their own planet.
Meat doctrine.
So much creepier than I thought it was. Like the idea of the restoration, like looking at all of the religion, like everything that we know that happened from the time that Jesus walked the earth until 1820 or whatever. Like the Inquisition and like so much like Christianity and all the things that have happened around that. Bunk, all of it until Joseph Smith in 18 whatever as a 14-year-old boy, but not really later telling the story back when he was a 14-year-old boy has restored this thing that people it's just basically negating 2,000 years of Christianity all in
Bingo.
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that.
And here's a big
this is brand new
surprise.
for me.
There are a lot of Christian people in the world who hear that story, and instead of turning the other cheek, they get offended. Can you imagine?
Why would they?
Can you?
I cannot.
Especially
some of you supposed Christians, yeah, especially Catholics.
Because in the Book of Mormon, there was the whore of the earth, the mother, like this whore of the earth, that was like spread all across the world, and it was
Horror? Did you say or horror?
Whore,
like
whore, whore, like a
Okay, whore.
yeah, the whore
like
of
a
the earth.
like a lady of the night.
The whore of the earth was the Catholic Church.
What?
Yeah.
How am I still learning new things? There's so many new things.
Oh,
The Book of Mormon says that there are two churches only. There's the whore of all the earth, and then the Church of the Lamb of God. I'll give you 3 guesses which one.
I want to be belong to the Church of the Whore. That sounds way more fun to me.
I started one.
Only call
The Church of Korah Whore.
Do you spell it that last part? Like you could try that.
I've done it before. I'll admit doing it before. But I mean, the story Korah Whore is the atheist character in the Book of Mormon. We told you that story before.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that most of the characters that Joseph Smith doesn't like. That's at least more than there's Korah whore, and then there's knee whore, and I think there's one more. There's whores.
A lot of whores.
The people that Joseph Smith doesn't like in the characters, he calls them he names them whore, which maybe telling.
Yeah,
maybe
telling.
Who knows? Maybe
sense.
Nothing, but
this is making me understand what, like I I've said a lot of times I'm not a Christian. I was Episcopalian until I was 14, but I know there's a lot of friction between like other Christian denominations and the Mormon Church, and now I understand why, because the whole basis for the Mormon Church is everything you guys have done for the last 2,000 years is bunk until this shyster Joseph Smith showed up and said, I'm going to put it all back together and restore a thing that actually never went away and has existed and people have died for and been killed for and fought wars for the last 2,000 years.
right.
Yeah.
It turns out they also dislike each other.
Surprise!
Surprise! It's just that Mormons happen to be one of the few groups that everybody can agree. Well, they're definitely evil and wrong.
Or at least wackadoodle, I guess.
Right.
A peculiar people.
A very peculiar and a proud peculiar people.
Plucky.
But the thing is that I think really begins people's deconstruction with Letter to a CES director is that most people think that the narrative that now is included in the scriptures that says this was a revelation received in 1829 or 1830 was actually added more like between 1834 1838.
And his family had never heard any of this stuff around the time of
And the converts.
You mentioned a trying moment earlier.
I did.
Friends, it is now time for a trying moment.
And now it's time for a trying moment.
For our trying moment, I just wanted to give us all an opportunity to create a First Vision account because Joseph Smith was really good at creating his own and many. So we're going to create one of our own. We're going to do a little game of Mavericks. All right. So I'm going to give each of you turns to give me a word that follows this specific criteria. Okay. First, Erica, give me any random emotion. Go.
Happy.
All right. Joe, I need an adjective.
Lustily.
Okay. I need Erica a type of light.
Fluorescent.
Yum.
All right. Joe, I need a noun.
Korah whore.
That is a noun.
What's a prop?
Okay. I need a famous person. Erica.
Brad Pitt.
Brad Pitt.
I like
Awesome.
I mean, he's kind of a douche, but he's
But he's a
sexy.
very good looking
He's
douche.
a good looking douche.
All right, Joe, let's get a verb ending in ing. Let's keep it PG-13, maybe.
Romancing.
Romancing. I love it. All right. And I need Erica, a culty job title.
Bishop.
Joe, give me a strange command.
Kick it.
Kick it. And then plural noun, Erica.
Teacups.
All right. Are you ready for our first vision?
Oh, we're having a vision.
Here's our.
Wait, should we do like?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, and others. Here we go. A Nevermo's first vision. I was filled with happiness, so I wandered into the woods and offered a lustful prayer.
My favorite kind.
Suddenly, a fluorescent light descended from above, brighter than the Korihor, and I saw Brad Pitt gloriously romancing. Another voice said, "This is my beloved bishop. Cheer them." Then I was told, "Kick it. And don't ask questions. And while you're at it, don't let any of your teacups ask questions either." Boom.
Shaka laka laka. That is amazing.
I think we should have this published and start a church.
We're gonna.
Can we
start
add this to Church of Korihor canon?
Can it? Yeah. Can it be part of the first?
I don't know that
edition of
it's
the
ready
Church
for
of
canon,
Korihor?
but it'll be ready for a blog post, sure.
Maybe the only people
That's
who
a
can
workshop
have
of
vision.
canon.
Let's restore the priesthood, but only women.
Only women get the
Only
priesthood.
women can hold the priesthood, and it starts with this vision right here.
And your lustful
Teacups
prayer.
must refer to women, right? Because it's like teacups, right? God is speaking to me and telling me it is about the teacup. It's very, very clear. It's clear. to me.
Very clear.
It's a latte des saints.
The latte saints. Speaking of lattes, we're going to wrap up here and do a cheers in just a moment. But we just wanted to thank Joe for being with us today. It's been an absolute delight.
I had fun.
Yeah,
it's
thank
been
you
a
so
blast.
much. We're gonna need to have you on again because there's so much to talk about and unravel, and you're a great guest. So thank you for being here, and hopefully we'll have you on again.
We would love to thank Land of a Thousand Hills Coffee as always. They're wonderful to have us here. And again, just remember that the views expressed in this episode reflect us, not the
And if you like any of our content, if you like what you saw here today, please like, subscribe, share. That would really help us out. We would really appreciate it. And we obviously love what we're doing. So we want other people to love what we're doing too.
Our website is up. You can find us at twonomos.com. So please join us there. And Joe, where can audience members find you and the Church of Korihor?
We are korihor.org. If you don't know how to spell Korihor, think of the stupidest way you could spell that word. And that's the way Joseph Smith spelled it.
Korihor.
Bingo.
I know too many things.
Drop in the show notes. Again, thank you so much, Joe. It's been a delight. So without further ado, everyone,
Cheers
to deconstructing Mormonism.
Mormonism.